Okay, so you're trying to learn something new, maybe something big, fast, prepping for a meeting, diving into a new field, or, just following your curiosity. And the big wall you hit isn't always the complex stuff itself. It's that feeling of uh, mental fatigue, maybe some anxiety, just being totally swamped by all the information. You sit down, you're ready to go, and your brain just kind of spins out.
Yeah, that internal friction, that
Yeah.
feeling like you can't focus. It makes so many people just, well, stop trying. It kills your confidence right away. When something looks too big, the brain kind of defaults to panic mode, and that really messes with your working memory.
Exactly. And that emotional piece, the struggle part, that's really at the heart of the source material we looked at today. We followed the story about Ethan, a student who felt, honestly, pretty hopeless. And the advice he got from his philosophy teacher, Mr. Harris, was surprisingly simple, but really powerful. We're not talking about fancy apps or complex, brain hacks here. It's really grounded in basic, usable philosophy.
And what really jumps out is how Mr. Harris saw the root problem. Ethan's classmates laughed when he made mistakes, right? So he started to internalize that feeling of failure. The teacher got that the emotional noise needed to settle down before any real learning could happen. And his tools, these 5 lessons, they work because they use these simple analogies that make kind of complex psychological ideas easy to grasp, like right away.
Right. So our mission in this deep dive is to go past the story itself and really synthesize what these 5 steps mean for you. We're going to unpack the framework Mr. Harris gave Ethan, this structure that could genuinely change how you approach soaking up new information. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with clearing the decks mentally.
Yeah, the first lesson is, well, it's basically non-negotiable for any serious mental work. Calm your mind. It's about deliberately prepping before you even start the task.
And the analogy he used is just perfect. Mr. Harris shows Ethan this glass bottle, and it's full of murky, muddy water. You can't see through it, obviously can't drink it, and the teacher just tells him, set it down, wait. And after an hour, all the dirt, the muck, it just settles right to the bottom. The water is left totally clear.
And that synthesis is key for us. That mud, it represents your cognitive load. The leftover stress from earlier, switching tasks, worrying about how things will turn out, or just the general background noise of life. If you try to pour new knowledge into a mind that's already full of that internal static, you just can't think straight. You're definitely not going to absorb information well.
So the actual habit Mr. Harris recommended was simple. Close your eyes for 5 minutes before studying. Just focus only on your breathing. But is that just about, relaxing? Or is something else going on there?
Oh, it's way more than just relaxation. It's a very deliberate act. It reduces what psychologists sometimes call attentional residue. See, when you switch tasks, your brain doesn't instantly let go of the old one, those 5 minutes of just being still. They act like a cognitive buffer. It's sort of a forcing function to quiet down that background noise that eats up your working memory. It's not just feeling calm. It's about freeing up brain power for what's next.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. You quiet the system before you ask it to do heavy lifting.
Yeah.
But even when the water's clear, how do you stop your mind from immediately stirring the mud back up?
Which brings us nicely to lesson 2. Focus on the present. This is where we tackle that mind-wandering thing, right? Stop drifting into past regrets or future worries.
Exactly. And Mr. Harris used another really simple physical thing here. He lit a candle, put it on the table, and just asked Ethan to focus only on the flame. Observe its shape, how it moves, the colors, nothing else. And of course, Ethan found it really hard at first. His mind immediately jumped to friends, exams, everything but the flame. Which is so relatable. You sit down with, say, a dense report or a technical manual, and that pull to mentally drift off somewhere else is really strong. But, okay, focusing on a candle is one thing. How does that translate when I'm actually trying to read a textbook? Did the source get into that?
Oh, absolutely. The candle is just like the training wheels. The core idea, the philosophy bit, is that the past is over and the future hasn't come yet. What we have is the present moment. The goal isn't to magically stop thoughts. That's impossible. It's about developing what you call metacognitive shifting. You notice your mind has wandered. Oh, there's that worry about the deadline. You acknowledge it, and then you gently, deliberately bring your focus back to the page, the diagram, whatever's in front of you.
That distinction feels really important. It's not fighting the distraction, it's noticing it and then doing that gentle return. Why is the gentleness key, though? Why not just force yourself back on track?
Because forcing it creates resistance. It creates stress. which, guess what? It immediately muddies the water again. Gentleness, on the other hand, actually builds the focusing muscle. Every single time you gently pull your attention back, you're actually strengthening the neural pathway for intentional focus. You're practicing returning to your anchor so it gets less effortful over time.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So once we've managed to ground ourselves in the present, the way we engage with the task, the quality of it, that really matters, which leads perfectly into the next big challenge, moving beyond just recall. Lesson 3, try to understand, not just memorize.
This one goes straight at the trap of rote learning,
Yeah.
which is just a huge waste of time and energy for anyone trying to really get something deeply. Memorizing fades fast. Understanding sticks.
And Mr. Harris had another brilliant analogy for this, the sponge and the rock. He poured water representing knowledge onto both.
And he pointed out, students who just try to cram facts without context, without meaning, they're like the rock. The water, the knowledge, it just rolls right off. Doesn't sink in. But the students who try to understand, who try to imagine things, maybe build mental maps, learn through examples, they're the sponge. They actually soak up the water, integrate it, and, well, they remember it.
I love that sponge image. But, for someone staring down a massive syllabus, like trying to pass a big certification exam that needs tons of recall, they often feel like they have to just memorize. How does this understanding approach actually help you pass a tough multiple choice test where recall seems key?
Well, that gets to a really interesting point about how memory actually works. See, when you memorize something just by repeating it, rote learning, you basically create one single pathway to retrieve it. Sound to word, maybe. But when you work to understand and imagine, you build multiple retrieval paths. You link that concept to a feeling, maybe a scenario you visualized, an example, a connection to something else you know. That integration, the sponge action, means if one path is blocked during the test, maybe you're stressed, you've got like 5 other ways to get to that information. Understanding is the best memorization technique because it builds context. It builds hooks.
That clicks. Yeah, it's like building a strong network, not just one flimsy thread.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've calmed the mind, we're focused on the present, we're trying to integrate, understand, not just repeat. But sometimes, even if the topic is fascinating, the sheer amount of information is just paralyzing. Which takes us to lesson 4. Break learning into small parts.
Yes, this tackles that mountain is too high feeling, the paralysis that comes from sheer volume. And the analogy was super physical, very direct. The teacher gave Ethan this big, solid wooden block, asked him to break it. Ethan couldn't, obviously. It was too big. Then the teacher took a tool, cut the block into lots of smaller pieces, and then Ethan could break those small pieces easily.
It's such a clear visual for task chunking, right? Which is, a standard productivity technique. But how did Mr. Harris's approach maybe differ from something like, say, the Pomodoro technique? Did the source give specific timings for these small parts?
What's interesting is the source doesn't lock you into a strict timer like 25 minutes on, 5 off, which can be freeing, actually. The practical strategy is more about preventing boredom and fatigue. Don't try to swallow a whole chapter in one go. Break it down into like digestible, self-contained chunks. Study a bit, take a short focus break, maybe just stand up, stretch, look away, then repeat. The key difference seems to be the psychological relief. Each little completion, breaking one small piece, gives you a win. And the breaks let your prefrontal cortex reset a bit. So the total time spent feels less draining, and you actually increase the density of your focus periods.
Oh, okay. So you're basically harnessing the power of small wins.
Yeah.
You keep proving to yourself, I can break this block just by tackling smaller pieces.
Precisely. And this strategy, these small, manageable parts, it ties directly into the 5th and final lesson, which is really the infrastructure needed for all the others to work long-term. Practice regularly. Structure is kind of useless without consistency.
Right. And Mr. Harris used that very simple analogy of the 2 potted seeds. He watered one seed every single day, consistently. And after a few days, sure enough, a little plant starts to grow. The other seed never got watered, stayed dry, just a seed in dirt.
We often fall back on intense, last-minute cramming sessions. Why is that steady, regular effort so much more powerful than short bursts of intensity?
Well, if you think about how the brain actually builds knowledge, consistency is just everything. The source makes it really clear. Study one day, then skip 3. It just won't build lasting knowledge. This really taps into the brain's need for regular input to lay down and then strengthen permanent neural pathways. Think about building muscle. You can't do it all in one super intense, painful day at the gym. You'll just injure yourself. It requires sustained, consistent, maybe lower impact effort over time.
So even just say 20 minutes every single day is genuinely better than trying to do an 8-hour marathon session once a week. Much, much better. That 20 minutes a day isn't really about maximizing the sheer volume learned in that session. It's about making the act of starting low friction, making a routine. It lowers the activation energy needed to just sit down and begin. And that regular nourishment, that small daily watering, that compounding return, that's what lets the plant the knowledge actually grow deep roots.
Okay, so let's quickly recap those 5 steps. First, calm the mind, using that brief period of stillness, like clearing the muddy water. Second, focus on the present, using that gentle return when your mind wanders, like watching the candle flame.
Right.
Third, try to understand, not just memorize. Be the sponge, not the rock, using imagination and examples.
Exactly. Build those connections.
Fourth, break learning into small parts. Chunk it down like the wooden block so it's not overwhelming.
Small wins.
And fifth, practice regularly. Water the seed consistently, even if it's just for a short time each day.
That's the framework. And the result for Ethan, the way the source describes it, really shows how powerful this is. He went beyond just trying to, ace his test. He actually started to enjoy learning. He could sit and study better. He understood things more easily. And that sort of paralyzing fear he felt, it faded. Those small habit changes led to a really big internal shift for him.
So what's the big picture takeaway here for you listening? The sources show these simple discipline habits weren't just a quick fix for Ethan's exams. Yes, his grades shot up dramatically, but the source also notes that 5 years later, he was considered a successful person. That long-term transformation wasn't luck. It came from building sustainable practices.
Yeah, that progression really proves that learning, acquiring knowledge, it's ultimately a game of discipline and patience. The challenge for so many of us today is getting past that feeling of inadequacy, that overwhelm, and realizing the tools themselves are often quite simple. They just require consistent use. The infrastructure for success, like Mr. Harris showed Ethan, it's built with these small, steady efforts that accumulate into really big achievements over time.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, maybe just take that first step like Ethan did. Could you commit to those 5 minutes of stillness before your next big task? Or maybe that 20 minutes of focused, chunked down effort today?
And maybe build on that final idea from the source too. Don't just focus on the external methods, the techniques. Consider that your own belief that you can do it, combined with your willingness to put in the hard work. Those are ultimately your most powerful tools. So what massive, overwhelming challenge in your own life right now could start to change if you applied that belief, consistently breaking it down, starting with just 5 minutes of calm beginning today?